Welcome to Behind the Muscle Podcast. Today's guest is an NPC bodybuilder. Today's guest is Joey Cavs. Joey, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor. When I got the message, I was like completely shocked. I was like, okay, cool. Like we're actually part of the conversation. That's literally what I texted my coach. I was like, hey, we're actually, we might be doing this, making some noise finally. It's been a couple years, so we'll see. It's great to be here.
For sure, man. So I'm excited to have you. Your coach actually started following me on Instagram, so I'll have to get him on probably after North Americans. I never heard of him, so I'm excited to kind of maybe get him on at some point too. But I'm super excited to chop it up, man. We're not too far out from North Americans. I've got tons of guys that are competing at North Americans on over the weekend and early next week, and excited to have you kind of a part of that lineup. So the first question I have for you, Joey. Who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
One, Tom Platz, two, Franco Colombo, and then Flex Lewis.
Okay, who was your first one?
Franco Colombo.
Franco. Okay,
no. Tom Platz was my first, obviously, and then Franco Colombo.
Okay, so Tom Platz, is that just kind of the legs thing or what?
That and his mentality of how he approached training, it was just 1000% all the time till failure, like leave nothing in the tank. I feel like that's been forgotten now in training, and everyone's methodical and like all these different mentalities are going around as like you shouldn't be going till failure or going till complete failure. And I just think that's lost. And I think the physiques are kind of showing that.
All right. I'm excited to kind of get into a little bit more of that talk here in a minute. Now, are there some guys like on the current IFBB circuit that you really maybe look up to their physiques or look up to their training or their philosophy or what have you?
James Hollinshead, 100%. He trains very old school, which I love. And his physique, and you can tell in his physique, it's just hard, dense, and huge. Like you can just tell us how he trains, and he's probably the biggest one I look up to right now.
Cool. Now I love James too. I really hope he brings it. Well, he's got to qualify for the Olympia first, but if he gets,
I thought he was qualified already for 2 years.
What's that?
I thought he was qualified for 2 Olympias already because he had 2 wins last year.
You might be right. So let's just say this. Let's hope he really brings it at this year's Olympia. I was a little disappointed last year. It happens, but I love his physique, man. You're
the changes he's made are astronomical. It's ridiculous. So. Yeah. I honestly think he'll be top 6 this year.
Yeah. Well, I had him in my top 6 last year. So that would be really cool. So, all right. So Joey, at what age did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that specific age?
So I started lifting for football when I was like 13, I think, just going right into high school, just football conditioning, stuff like that. Instantly fell in love with it. But I did consider myself like, I started actually training when I started bodybuilding. So I just worked out kind of like a bro, like didn't really know what I was doing, just lifted heavy and whatever, like shit form and just trying to get big and strong. And like naturally I was at that age, I think at 14 or 15, I was squatting 365 for 15 reps and then benching 365 for 1, so it came pretty naturally to me.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So I like to use that question to kind of transition into my guest's upbringing, kind of the childhood. So talk to us a little bit about where you grew up. Talk about, you said football, talk about any other sports you played. Just talk about those younger years a little bit up to about high school. And then I've got some questions to kind of lead us from there.
So I played almost every sport: soccer, basketball, baseball. I wrestled a little bit. What else? There's probably a couple I'm missing. But I was always into sports, always active. And when I got into I think I missed where I grew up, but I lived at 9 and Ryan from till I was like 6. So I was supposed to go to Fitzgerald, and then we kind of moved out to Clinton Township area, like 20 minutes north of Detroit. And I ended up going to what's called Chippewa Valley, was my high school.
So talk about your family a little bit. Mom, dad, siblings, anything like that?
So I got my mom and dad. They'll both be at North Americans, and so will my sister. And I'm pretty sure she's bringing her baby, so we'll see. I'm not sure about my brother. So I'm the youngest of 3. I have an older brother and sister, and they both have a daughter. They both each have a daughter. So No kids for me yet, just a wife and dog.
Okay. What's something, looking back on your childhood, what's something or a couple things, Joey, you feel like your parents really instilled in you as a kid?
Hmm. Um, I was really independent as a child. Like they probably instilled some things in me. Like my dad was really hardworking and like stuff like that, but I was completely different from everyone in my family. My mom and sister were a thing, and then my brother and dad were like two peas, like they were, two peas in a pod. Those two were all together, and then there was me. I just literally played sports. I stayed by myself, and then and I just found lifting and found my friends. And I think the one thing that they may have instilled was like, 'cause my dad worked seasonally with concrete, so it was like when he wasn't working, my mom had to pick up the slack. So it's like one way or another, like I knew there was always a way to make it. There was always a way to get what you had to fucking get done, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool, man. Okay. So most of us, when we're in high school, we've got some idea of kind of what we want to do for a career or what we want to do when we grow up. What were some thoughts that you had when you were kind of in high school as a teenager in terms of what you wanted to be or what you wanted to do when you grew up? Once you graduate high school, how did life kind of unfold with some of those ideas you had?
It was all over the place. So in high school, I was pretty much like I lifted weights though, and I was active, played sports, captain of the football team, stuff like that. But I was, like I was a drunk fat stoner. Like that's how I would explain my high school. It was bad. Um, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I used to, well, I don't know if I can draw anymore. I probably could pick it back up, but I used to want to draw for comic books. So when I first like left high school, I went into college for art. And then like I was in a really like, okay, so here we go. Little backstory. I was in like a really fucked up relationship in high school, like emotionally abusive and stuff like that. And it was just bad. So when high school ended, we got into like a really bad spot and we were splitting up, whatever. So I told her, I was like, all right, if we're done, like we're going in the Marine Corps, or I'm going in the Marine Corps, not we, obviously not. Right. So I ended up, started training. I had to lose 60 pounds to get in. And that's kind of how like the whole bodybuilding thing started, but I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, I went through like a super big depression and I lost all the weight and whatever. And then I ended up leaving college, joining the military, and that's how I found bodybuilding.
Mm. Okay, so there's a little bit I want to unpack there. We won't get
Yeah.
too deep into it, but that's an
Hey, ask away. I'm an open book.
okay, cool. That's an
Yeah.
important part of this podcast to just kind of dig in a little bit past just the bodybuilding stuff because that kind of gets boring talking about that all the time. So now, in terms of this relationship, I guess maybe as you were able to process it at some point in your life, I'm assuming you have. What
Mhm.
were some things that you were able to take away, that have maybe made you a better person from that relationship when you were a teenager?
That to really not so if someone doesn't want to be in your life, you can't force them to be. That's like the one thing I take away from that is like A, that, and then B, don't let anyone stop you from what you truly want to do. Like my dad was in the Marines, so like that's one thing I always wanted to do was like take after him and join the Marine Corps as much as my parents told me never to join. I didn't listen, obviously. I didn't listen to them much and got me in trouble sometimes, but I wouldn't have found bodybuilding if I didn't go in. So don't let anyone stop you. Like no matter how close they are to you, always focus on yourself and always better yourself and never feel sorry for that. And then, if someone doesn't want to be in your life, you can't force them to be. And if you have to force somebody to be in your life, they're not meant to be there.
Yeah, no, that's excellent, man. Okay, so the Marine Corps, why don't you talk about that? You said you had to lose like 60 pounds. How did you do it? What was your experience like personally in the military?
So at the time when I was getting ready for the Marine Corps, I worked at a restaurant called the Country Inn in the back. I was a prep cook. So it was super easy to get like clean food and like eat regularly how I needed to. And I really, instead of eating fucking Arby's every day after football practice or whatever, I stopped being fat and I was eating like chicken, right? Like eating like the typical bodybuilder diet. I was eating like chicken, rice, and broccoli for pretty much every meal besides breakfast. I'd have like eggs or whatever. And then running all the time, still lifting weights. And I just did it kind of the right way, just kind of figured it out on my own. And the 60 pounds flew off and I was off to boot camp.
Okay. So what was your military experience like then once you were in?
All right, so I ended up going to San Diego, California for a boot camp because that's where my dad went. So I got grandfathered in over there, which was nice. Except for you're right next to the airport. So when you're getting tortured, you're just sitting there watching planes leave, and you're just like, oh fuck, I want to be on one of those. But honestly, it wasn't bad. I was stuck in North Carolina for pretty much the whole time, but that's where I met my first coach. So it was like I had a pretty my job going in, I was a common engineer, which is like military explosives and like construction and stuff like that, which I didn't really get to do, which kind of sucks, which is why I didn't stay in because I didn't really do the job I signed up for. But I was able to literally train 2 to 3 times a day. I was able to pack my meals, cook, everything. So it was nice. I met a lot of great guys that I will talk to forever. Even my first coach turned into like one of my fathers.
So you said that kind of getting into the Marine Corps was how you kind of were introduced to bodybuilding. So why don't you start unpacking that story for us, please?
Okay, so there's like 5 million gyms on base, and you kind of like the Marine Corps is a very small knit community, and everyone knows each other, right? From the gym or working out or your units, whatever. So there's this gym, Tarawa Terrace down there, which is it's on base housing. It's pretty nice. Was ran by a good buddy of mine, and then I was just training one day, lifting and whatever, and had like a tank top on. This guy comes up, he's like, "Hey, do you compete?" I was like, "No, I've never even, thought about it." And I guess he told my first coach, his name's Perry Wooten. He's a pretty big coach down there in North Carolina. He ended up like approaching me, calling me blah, blah. He's like, "Hey, this is what I do. Let's go in the locker room. You're going to pose." I'm like, "I'm going to what?" He's like, "We're going to start posing." I'm like, "Okay, cool, whatever." All right. So we go in the locker room, strip down, start posing. And then like, I kind of just fell into a prep from there and did my first show. I think I did like a 18 week prep, took overall at my first show. It was one of the shows on base. I forgot what it was called. And then as soon as I stepped under the lights, that was it. I was like, this is where I fucking want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, before you started, posing in this locker room for this guy when you were in the military, I mean, did you have some exposure or understanding of what bodybuilding was or not really?
Just from magazines, like literally just from like what I seen on magazines, and like that was pretty much it. I knew nothing. I didn't know how to pose, didn't know anything, didn't know how I was supposed to train. Yeah.
Now, when you saw like the bodybuilders on magazines, I mean, was that something that kind of appealed to you, or did you not really even put a whole lot of thought into it at the time?
100%. That's exactly what I wanted. I just didn't know how to get there.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
that's the look I always wanted, was to be like huge, a mass monster, like Jay Cutler, Dorian Yates. Like that's what I wanted to look like.
Okay. Do you remember the first bodybuilder that you saw on a magazine cover or not?
Jay Cutler.
Jay Cutler. There we go,
Yeah.
man. I just he was I live in Iowa,
Okay.
far away from where Jay Cutler lives, but he was actually in Lincoln, Nebraska, which is a 3-hour drive from where I live this last weekend. So he's my all-time favorite bodybuilder. I saw him compete at the 2008 Olympia, but never had actually personally met him or anything because he
He's
was
a
the
super
reigning.
nice guy,
Oh,
by the way.
so
He
cool.
gives like the softest handshake on the planet.
Yeah, yeah. So when I was at the '08 Olympia, I didn't stand in his line to meet him because he was the reigning Mr. Olympia and his line was forever, and we are kind of like,
Yeah.
screw that. But so anyways, I was able to go to Lincoln, Nebraska last weekend and meet him. And dude, I literally stood in line for like 2 hours to see him. But you're exactly right, and I already knew this just from watching him for so many years. But like, I mean, he takes 10 to 15 minutes with every single fan.
Yes.
And talks to them. He asks them questions. He listens to them. It's unbelievable, man. It's so cool. Like he is everything that all the accolades, all the respect that he gets. Like it's deserving because there's nobody like him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like when I watch like his motivational videos now and stuff like that, like when I'm on the stairs or whatever, like the last 5 minutes, I'm sitting there dying. I'm like, turn on one of his. He's like, I'll say this without arrogance. Jay Cutler is the greatest Mr. Olympia of all time. And like, as far as like ambassadors are concerned, like I believe that 100%. Ambassadors for the sport, it doesn't get better than Jay Cutler.
For sure. Yep. Awesome. So that's pretty cool that he's the first bodybuilder you saw in the magazine. Now, let's talk about, this first competition. You said you won it. It was something that was on base. You said as soon as you got under the lights, you were like, man, this is for me. How was that prep? How was that coach that prepped you? What was that process like? Just unpack that for a minute.
Oh boy. God, if I can even remember right. it was honestly, it was fasted cardio for an hour. It was probably 40 minutes after training. Real low food, just like your typical, like what a first prep would even look like. Cause I didn't know any better, like that's just how he worked. Like we might have carb cycled. I'm not even like, it was, when was it? It had to have been 2015, I believe, was my very first prep. And I think I did about 3 shows that year.
Okay, so why don't you just unpack from that first show in 2015, just unpack your kind of your competition history, touch on some of the highlights, kind of up to the point where we're at right now for prep with North Americans.
So I did 3 shows that first year. I took overall my first, and then second in the open. And then, so down there in North Carolina, when you get close to the military towns, they'll have like a whole military bracket. So it'll be just guys that are active military. So I took overall in the military, overall novice, and I think my third show I took probably first in open and maybe like second overall. So it was like a very good, like it got like a good taste in my mouth for bodybuilding, like down there in North Carolina. Like I was like, okay, cool. Like this is something I can fucking run with. And then I got out of the Marine Corps in 2017, and I was still working with Perry Woon, but like online stuff like that. And then getting ready for like North Americans for like the first time, and I got fucking slaughtered, like way too small, like string, like I was doing like 3 hours of cardio a day, like it was insane, like all the horror stories you think of. But no, it was like you live and you learn each prep, and eventually we ended up not working together because he was in prep too. Like he like when I exaggerate, he probably has the most clients out of any coach I've ever known in my life, and that's in person. Like he probably trains 80 to 90 in-person clients, which is just, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know how he does it. And as well as online too. So he's a super busy guy, and I understand that, like with his own prep. So I ended up getting in touch with, I don't know if you know who Dave Reed is.
I don't.
So he's a coach up here in Michigan, or was. He doesn't coach anymore. Probably on the intellect level of genius, to where conversations are, you're just sitting there like, I don't understand a word you're saying, but I'm just gonna keep letting you going. So I ended up getting with him. My first year with him, I ended up putting on 20 pounds of stage weight. So I went from like competing around 189 to competing at like whatever 20 pounds is, 219, something like that. Took a couple shows with him, went to nationals, same thing, just a little too string, a little too small, still trying to fill out my frame. And then he ended up passing me off to Dom Kuza, because they both super intellectual beings, like obnoxiously smart. So they clicked really well together. And with how Dom works, it's very what's the word I'm looking for? Matter of fact, like everything is down to like the exact detail, which is like how I operate the best, like with the military background and stuff like that. Like, just tell me what to do, I'm gonna fucking do it. I don't care how specific it is. Like, just give me that. So being with Dom now, this will be our second year. First year, super successful, completely changed my physique. Like I got up to like 285 pounds of my bulk. Like it was awesome. So now I'm with him, and we just took overall last weekend in Flushing, and now we're getting ready for North Americans.
Okay, cool. Now I want to take a step back. It sounds like with this coach Dave Reed, he's the one that you said you kind of put on like 20 pounds of stage weight. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I want you to be real with us. Now, was that what caused you to put on that much stage weight? Because that's a big jump. Was it the gear, the eating, the training? Was it one of those things, two of those things, all those things? Was it something else? Like what was that with that gain?
So I honestly, I would say it was the biggest change was the food. So I was eating probably triple what I was with my first coach, and not even knowing, like I was really under eating for how big I wanted to get, that was the biggest change. Gear really never changed for me when I started. Like I've never done like super high fucking dosage of everything. It's pretty much been your basics through every bulk, test, deca, EQ, whatever. With Dom, it's a little different. It's a little bit more mild, a little bit lower, which I think actually helped. a lot. So bringing that down actually gave my body a break and allowed me to grow a little bit more. But the biggest change from Perry to Dave was the food. Because when I first started with Dave, I looked at my food, I was like, there's no fucking way I'm eating all of this. Because he worked with Justin Harris. So he like adopted a lot of those methodologies as far as like carb cycling and stuff like that. So I was eating like with Dave, I was eating like 1,200 grams of carbs like 4 times a week. Like those were like my peak days. So it was crazy. I didn't even, but my body was responding so well, I just soaked it up and kept growing.
So, training, how has your training kind of evolved over the years, and what does it kind of look like current day, Joey?
So like I said before, like when I was 13 to when I started bodybuilding, I was training like a bro, just like not really knowing what I was doing, just like the typical bro split, which like isn't bad. Like people call it the pro split now. So it's like I was doing that, but shit form, and I probably wasn't doing the right amount of reps, right amount of intensity. I was just trying to train as heavy as possible all the time. Now it's obviously evolved. Like I've learned what my body adapts to best, like what lifts work the best, like what I connect to the most. So obviously we're leading into North American. So it's like, I would say my training intensity like decreases, but I literally just sent my coach yesterday already yelling 495 for reps. And I'm like a week out. So I was like, whatever. But no, training's great now. It's just a lot more methodical and I don't change it up as much. My workouts are pretty much the same week to week. I just either try to get more reps or I try to go a little heavier.
So your normal, typical progressive overload for the most part, then, huh?
Yeah, for the most part, I'll have my days where I'm like feeling pretty good. I'm like, all right, well, let's go for like a 1 to 2 rep max, see where we're at. And then other than that, it's like 6 to 8 rep maxes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. What's been your current training split here recently?
So I'll do, what is it? I'll do push pull legs, rest, shoulders, traps, and tries, and then like a back and hamstring day.
Okay.
For the most part. These past couple weeks, it's been quads on Sunday, rest, push, pull, hamstrings, rest, shoulders, traps, and tries.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so
this is probably my favorite split right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's been kind of your focus then this past off season coming into these preps in terms of body parts that you're really trying to bring up or just get bigger?
My arms and back my back width needed to come up. So I needed to get a lot wider, which we did. And then my arms filled out a lot more. Those were the two main focuses. My legs have never really been an issue, but for some reason this year, the detail in them is just astronomical from the back end, which is, perfect going in. So, but as far as balance is concerned, I think we balanced it out. The only thing I would really focus on this next off season is obviously arms a little more. For some reason, my arms just fucking give me hell to grow. Back thickness just a little bit more.
Now, going to arms, they say kind of the arm thing kind of is a white guy problem, right? So, what have you found to kind of help grow your arms? Like, is it more volume? Is it more cables? What do you think up to this point has helped you?
So I strayed away from like anything that has to do with like a straight bar, and I think increasing the volume, but not. I don't go to like pump sets anymore to like 20 to 30. I'll go to like super hard sets at 10 to 12 and just hold each contraction for like 2 to 3 seconds, but more like a methodical. So I'll be like a workout with a shortened range of motion, and then I'll go to one where it just stretches it the hell out, and then just like holding the different points in the movement.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many kind of sets do you usually do with arms?
Oh, I have no idea. So that's the one thing, like my training partners will ask, like, all right, how many sets are you doing? I don't know. We'll see what happens. For every lift, how many reps are you doing? Well, I don't know. We'll see how I'm feeling. And then I go from there. So when I train, I go on like a pain tolerance scale instead of like sets and reps and stuff like that. Like if I'm feeling an exercise and I keep getting a greater pump from it, I'm just going to fucking ride it out for like 5 sets.
Cool. I like it, man. That's kind of a little bit of Jay Cutler-esque, isn't it? I mean, he just kind of did the higher volume and just kind of went until he went. I mean, from the training I've seen, isn't that correct?
Yeah. So he always says like he would do lightweight or he would do heavyweight, but it's like as long as he was still feeling that exercise, like he would just fucking keep it rolling.
Yeah.
If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? Like if you start burning out on an exercise or seeing like diminishing returns, like yeah, it might be time to change your like range of motion or change your angle, change the movement up.
Yeah. So what's cardio? I know you just competed here like a week or two ago, but like this entire prep, what's your cardio kind of been like in terms of how high has it gotten? Have you guys backed off now that you're so close to North Americans? What's that like?
Yeah, so it was pretty much it's been 500 calories. So the last prep Dom and I did together, he was like, okay, go for X amount of minutes. But the problem with like my body adapts to stressors for some reason very quickly. So I could get up to in like 50 minutes, I could get up to like 900 calories. It's just like my heart rate just wouldn't get high anymore. So I'd have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to get like anything out of it. Now he backed me off and now he's just like, okay, hit X amount of calories. So for the first up until about maybe a week ago, it was at 500 calories. Now we just backed off to 400. And then today was my last day of cardio.
What type of cardio do you usually do? Stepper or just walking or?
So I'll usually do the stairs or the elliptical. Now when this prep first started, I actually tore my left labrum in my hip. And I didn't get surgery or anything on it. So like the stairs were kind of fucking with me. So I would go to the elliptical or I would do like an arc trainer, which was like a little bit less impact on my hip. But now like that I'm lighter, my hip's taking less damage. So now I can actually like do the stairs the whole time.
Okay, cool. All right. I want to ask you before we kind of continue with bodybuilding talk in terms of career, in terms of profession, what does that kind of look like to you current day?
So I'm a full-time coach, online and in-person training. I work about 60, 70 hours a week in between, online and face-to-face clients.
All right. So what have you kind of learned about, because the online stuff is a little bit different than actually training people in person.
Yes.
It's a whole different dynamic, just like doing a podcast in person is different than doing it remote.
Yeah.
There's obviously similarities and carryover, but they're two different things. Now, in terms of training people in person, is that something that you enjoy? And then what have you kind of learned maybe about yourself, about other people through training people specifically in person?
Not everybody has your discipline. That's the biggest thing I learned. Not every. So when you get the ones or twos will, but the biggest thing I realized is not everyone has your effort and pain tolerance in the gym, and not everyone has your discipline. Especially being like a competitive bodybuilder who aspires to be a pro. Like you take everything very seriously. So your clients have their own lives that they have to adjust to. Like they'll have kids or they'll have certain problems, disabilities and stuff like that. So that was probably the biggest adjustment that I had to deal with clients, is that realizing that they're going to have excuses, as to where I don't give myself any fucking excuses.
And so like and you got to remember that you're a Marine as well. So that's a whole different level, right?
Yeah. So so a lot of my online clients are actually military or ex-military. So it's great working with those guys, because I know whatever I put on that sheet, they're going to do hands down, regardless, unless something random pops up. Right. So those are kind of where I target like my online, not even that I even really advertise, but it's like, those are the people I mostly get for online training, or like ex-military and stuff like that.
Okay. Now in terms of because I own a gym and I train people not online but in person. Now I'm right with you, man. Like I've always been so driven and so I don't like to use the word motivated. I'll just use the word driven and disciplined.
I fucking hate that word.
Yeah, no, I know. We could have probably an hour conversation on the podcast about that, but we'll save that for another one. So when people these people that they're scheduled for, an 8 a.m. session, and then they text me at 7:59, hey, I'm going to be late, or I'm not going to make it. I don't get it. Right. I just, because I'm so driven, I'm so focused, I'm so disciplined. I just don't get that. So how have you been able to maybe just better understand those type of clients, or how do you respond to those people? What do you do with them?
Take their session away.
What's that?
I take their session away.
Do you?
Oh yeah. That's so for me, the biggest insult I can get besides like spitting on my face is being late, no call, no showing, or like texting me right before saying like you can't do it. So that's like those are the three biggest things. Like I tell people all the time, was like if you're gonna be late, give me at least if you're gonna be late, give me a heads up.
Yeah.
Don't just show up late. All right. If you're not gonna show up at all, give me a heads up so I can try to fill your slot. So not like it dealing with that now, like you get almost numb to it. Like it's still kind of infuriating. Like in the back of your head, you're like, all right, fuck, whatever. Um, but as long as like their excuse is like kind of like if they have like an emergency, like I'm empathetic, right? But other than that, like it just fucking infuriates me. Like there's nothing like it.
Right.
Because my biggest fear is that I'm late for something or that I forget to show up for something.
Now, what do you kind of want to do with the coaching thing? Is this something that you want to kind of build the business and have coaches underneath you at some point? Business wise, how far do you want to take this? What do you want it to look like in 2, 3, 5 years?
Yeah, so I want to be the best coach I can. Like I'm continuously educating myself, taking courses and stuff like that. So I eventually want to open up my own facility to where I manage the coaches and maybe have like my 1 or 2 clients that I train full time. Like the more serious ones, maybe some guys who compete, stuff like that. But I want to gear my gym more towards sports performance because that's where my passion is. Like I missed my opportunity to play college football and I regret that all the time. So it's like I want to because I was just a huge fuck up in high school. So I want to take these kids when they're young, mold them and teach them the right way how to train because as soon as sports like football coaches or basketball coaches or like I just actually got done with a 6-week camp and most of the kids were soccer players. They was like 12 to 16. These kids are never going to be in the weight room with their soccer team ever. So teaching them how to lift and teaching them how to move their bodies is one of the most important things, especially if they want to go and they want to play college soccer and they want to play college or pro soccer. They're going to be in the weight room then, but why should their first experience be at that level? It should be before. Yeah. So that's like when I want to gear my own facility towards is, youth training or like sports performance training.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Where have you found some of the best resources in terms of learning the coaching stuff or just continued education? Are there other coaches that you kind of like to have taken courses from, or where have you found some of that best information or best resources, if you don't mind sharing that?
So I have my sports performance training cert through NASM and then like just online and stuff like that. But I follow coaches on Instagram or like I'll read their articles online. And then I have like my nutrition certification and stuff through NCI and like their phase 1 and 2 and their hormones and all that. But there's like several coaches I'll read up on as far as like the certifications are concerned. Like I've been going through like NASM or like ISSA or CSCS is also a very good one.
Yeah, cool. So if somebody wants to connect with you in terms of coaching, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Usually Instagram or my email. So I get a lot of my personal Instagram. So Joey Quads. And then my professional Instagram is coach_Cavaliere or like through WhatsApp. Like usually I'll get emails and then usually I'll just direct email straight to my WhatsApp and then I start contacting them then.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Just for any of the listeners or viewers, if they want to connect with you, I just like to always give people the opportunity to kind of put that stuff out there. So let's get back into a little bit more bodybuilding talk. Now, before we get to the North American talk, I want to ask you, do you have kind of like long-term goals, Joey, for yourself in terms of a competitive bodybuilder? And if so, what are those, if you don't mind sharing them?
I would like to be pro, like be at least a competitive pro. I don't just want to turn pro and then like use that title to boost my fucking business. Like I do well as it is already as a coach, so I don't need, the title to fucking bring me money. That's as soon as I started bodybuilding, I was like, I want to be a pro. I want to compete as a pro. Like I want to stand toe to toe with these guys.
Cool. Now turning our conversation to North Americans, when is actual pre-judging for North Americans for open bodybuilding? Do you know? Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday at 8 a.m. I believe it starts.
And you're going to be in the super heavies?
Yes.
Okay. Is the pre-judging on Thursday, and then you come back on Friday, or is it all everything?
It's all in one day. So
Okay.
prejudging's at 8, and then oh God, I want to say finals is at 5 or 6. It's late.
Okay. Okay.
I even
Cool.
want to say, oh God, I think I just sent it to somebody. I think it's 6.
Well, it doesn't really matter because it
Yeah.
probably won't be on time anyways. Because I know talking to the guys at like nationals last year, USA is like it's
So that's the one thing I say. Gary Udit runs a very tight ship.
okay.
He runs very good shows.
Okay.
So like when he says like, all right, this shit's starting at 8, like we're getting rolling.
Okay.
There's like 10 to 15 people backstage, like, all right, you're getting glazed. All right, you guys are going like back and forth. Like it's very well ran.
Okay. Cool. All right. So we're just then a few days out from North Americans. What is your what's your focus? What's your goal? What's your aim to accomplish competitively at North Americans this year?
First 2 call outs would be great. So we're thinking honestly, like people will always boost your ego and stuff like that, like, oh, you're gonna kill it, like, but they don't see you next to like some of these fucking monsters that are about to be at North Americans. Like this super heavy lineup is the stupidest I've seen since Walker won. So there's a lot of really good guys. All I know is we're gonna be far better than last year. Now, if the judges like how it's either gonna go 1 to 2 ways, right? They're either gonna take the mass monsters or they're gonna take the guys with more shape, symmetry, and condition. You usually can't bring both. Whoever brings both is going to be the fucking, the winner. So we'll just see how everyone lines up. Realistically, like, I don't know where I'll place, but we'll see what happens. You hope for the best, you prepare for the best. You're right. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, the super heavies is going to be definitely legit North Americans. I've had some of the guys on, going to have more of them on here in the next day or two, so I'm excited about that. But now, in terms of getting out to Pittsburgh, when are you guys planning on getting into town for that?
So I'm going to train on Sunday, and then I think we're going to leave around noon, and we'll probably be in town around 4:30, 5 p.m. Like that's kind of like ballpark what I'm aiming for.
Okay. On what day?
Sunday.
Sunday. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
And you guys,
so,
you're in Michigan, so do you just drive down there? Is it a
Oh yeah,
drive?
it's super easy. It's like a 4.5 hour drive. It's super easy.
Okay.
Yeah, we're actually bringing the pup this year, so we'll have our pit bull Bruno with us.
Yeah, awesome, man. You're gonna have the whole crew there, huh?
Yeah, exactly. He's gonna all he wants is attention, so he's gonna be loving it.
Awesome, man. Now I want to talk. I just want to bring up. You mentioned all the freaks that are going to be in the super heavies this year. Now, in terms of like Instagram, social media, keeping your eye on other people that you think you might be competing against. What does that look like for you? Do you get on Instagram? Do you check out what other guys are doing, posting, or are you just got the blinders on, focused on Joey, and that's it?
If it pops up, like I'll look, but I'm not going and like searching for people. Like in the past, I would completely shut off Instagram, like because I didn't want to see anyone, just from like obviously like probably a self-esteem standpoint. Like I should just like when I was in prep, I would block like all pros. I would unfollow all pros and be like, all right, I don't look like this fucking guy. Like I'm not even gonna look at him. I think now that this year's a little different, mindset's a little different, so a little more confident. So I'm able to look at some of these guys, kind of compare myself to them, like see where we line up. But so for my last show, for the Flushing show where I took overall, we didn't even peak. Like we just kind of went in as my condition was, and ended up taking overall, which was great. Now we're actually like depleting, and then we're going to go into a carb load and actually peak for this. So I don't know how I'm going to look. I have no idea. So I don't know how I'm going to stand up to these guys who went to USA's and have already peaked. And I've seen like their quote final form, got them under. But so we'll see what happens. There's no like, I'm never intimidated by anybody, but I'm like, well, fuck, that guy's probably going to be in the first call out. Like he's an animal.
So I want to have fun for a minute. So yeah. Who are a couple of the freaks that you, like you just said, I won't use the language you use, but who are a couple of those guys that you've seen on Instagram? You're like, that guy's probably going to be in first call outs. Who are a couple of the guys? You got any on top of your mind?
Oh, God. So I'm the worst with names. So it's like, I literally met my neighbors 30 seconds later. I forgot their names. So, what is Brendan Bauer? Is that his name? Brendan?
Yep. Brandon. Yep. He got second at USA's.
Yeah. Obviously he'll be probably top 3, 4. I would have to look at the picture for these guys.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah, let's see here. Go.
Cole Eastfold will be up there. I know that.
Who's that?
Cole Eastfold. He got
I
third
honestly have no
at
idea.
USA's.
Okay. Phone load right now. There we go. Let's go to the bodybuilding club. Porters posted that one picture of everybody, I think. I don't know. I can't find it. Honestly, I don't know. There's a couple monsters on that. And the picture I was tagged in, like 2 of the 3 guys there, I was like, holy fuck, like, these guys are huge. But you know, like there's people that are on Instagram that aren't even in that picture, so you have no idea who's about to show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
And
the people in those pictures that
makes
I
it
think are
fun,
going to
man.
take.
That makes it
Oh
fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the guys I'm thinking of couldn't even be, you know, top 3. If anyone comes in off, they're knocked off. That's it. So I think after the top 3 are solidified, it's anyone's game.
Yep. It's exciting, man. A lot of people talk about open men's bodybuilding, like, dying out or something like that. But dude, if you pay attention to the top national shows from the end of last year going into this year, like bodybuilding, open men's bodybuilding is alive and well. And it's exciting. Don't you think, man?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. There was that period of time where like there was the 1 or 2 like superstars in NPC, but now it's like all these guys who took breaks from competing and that were just growing are starting to reemerge. So it's like we're gonna see like the next generation of really good pros coming in.
For sure. Yeah. So just thinking about your bodybuilding experience up to this point, from day one to kind of where we're at right now, as you look back and reflect, like what are some things that you feel like bodybuilding's really kind of taught you? You kind of already had, the discipline and stuff like that from sports and the military, but has bodybuilding kind of taught you maybe a couple other things that you don't think you would have learned through sports or the military or other avenues in life?
Honestly, I think I took what I learned from the military and transferred it into bodybuilding. Now academically, I think I learned from what I took from the military and then into bodybuilding. I took that into like my academics because I used to hate school, hate everything about it. And now I'm able to, concentrate more. I'm able to push my mind a little bit further into like learning different stuff and like researching and actually sitting down and being, I guess, patience would be the biggest one, because that's like my coach said it the best. He's like, bodybuilding how does he put it? It was something with patience. It's like it has to be the most patient sport with the least patient people. Like you have to be the most patient in bodybuilding, but it has the least patient people. Like everyone wants to grow as fast as they can, turn pro as fast as they can, like get the results as fast as they can, but it's like everything takes a little bit longer than you think it's going to.
Yeah.
And so realizing that is, like probably what I learned the most, because I thought like I was going to excel right away. Like, yeah, I did at first, and then you kind of stall out, and it's like you realize like once you get to the national stage, like all these guys that are taking the top spots, they all look like pros already.
There's I hear a lot of guys say there's levels to this, right? I mean, there's so many different levels to bodybuilding. So what's something about the bodybuilding culture right now that you don't like?
The social media aspect.
Yeah.
Like not like to knock like obviously like I love listening to podcasts and stuff like that, but I think like the edited photos and the photo shoot, like that's the one thing like I hate. Like I hate posting. I hate posting videos. I hate posting pictures, but it's from like a marketing yourself standpoint, like getting endorsements, getting sponsorships, like I get it, you have to, but like back in the day, like I always say this, like I very much have an old school mentality and like an older soul, because like if it were up to me, like I would just let my body do the talk. Like I would just work as hard as I'd like. That's all I do. I didn't fall in love with bodybuilding because of weightlifting. I fell in love with weightlifting and fucking working hard and sweating and building my body. So that aspect of like this newer generation, and like I get it, like I do, but I hate that aspect of it.
Yeah. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking, Joey?
28 turning 29.
Okay. So yeah, I'm 35. So I've had guys on there like 22 and stuff. I'm like, oh man. But so yeah, you definitely get it a little bit in terms of not really having social media growing up, right? And now it's here to stay. What would you like to speak? I think what you said about patience is great. But is there anything, kind of like you wish you would have known a little bit more about in terms of bodybuilding when you first got into it that you know now that you wouldn't mind sharing with us just to maybe help out some of the younger people that are just getting into it?
Learn to rest your fucking body. Learn that you grow when you rest. So when I first started like training and stuff like that, like I was training 3 times a day. Like I would do morning cardio, I would train at lunch, and then I would train like after work when I got out of the military. And it was just nonstop. And along with like my sleep issues and night terrors I was having, like it was just like I wasn't recovering or really growing how I should have. As soon as I started, working with coaches and like Dave and stuff like that, and like teaching me how to back off and eat more food, like that's when I started growing. So it's like, you can only go 1,000 miles per hour for so long, and then like you're gonna hit that brick wall. So I actually went through rhabdomyolysis. What it had to have been about maybe 4 years ago. I ended up losing like 14 pounds in 1 week, and it ended up triggering what's called leaking capillary syndrome. So that's where like there was just fluid all underneath my face. Like my face was swollen. I thought like I got beat up in my sleep. And, I went to the hospital and everything, and they laid me up for like 36 hours, like 4 weeks out from a show. Cause I was doing like 1,000 calories on the Stairmaster every morning in a calorie deficit. Like it was just miserable. So learn to listen to your body and learn that rest is a good thing. You don't always have to be training.
Right. Right. What does a recovery or off day look like for you kind of now?
So I'll do depending on the season, right? Like obviously we're like today's a rest day for me. So I just went and did morning cardio, I posed, did my check-ins, and now I'm just I worked with clients after that, but now I'm done working until after Pittsburgh. But a normal rest day is I'll get up, I'll either go for a walk on the treadmill, or I'll hit like the elliptical or stairs, do my cardio, do a little bit of abs, and then like I'm working. I don't step foot in the gym after that.
Do you get like any tissue work or chiropractic work or anything done or?
Yeah, so I'll get chiro work done usually 2 to 3 times a month. I haven't gotten a massage in a while. I found that like deep tissue massage like really didn't work for me. So I'll get like cupping or like dry needling done. And I felt like that's been like the biggest help, especially recovering during this prep. Or I'll hit like the infrared sauna and a cold plunge.
Cool, man. All right, Joey, we're gonna wrap it up, dude. First of all, I just want to say thanks for coming on, man. I know you're a few days out. You're deep into prep and
Yeah.
energy's low and all that, but I really appreciate you coming on. I'm excited to chat with you, learn a little bit more about you. Before I do a quick outro, if you have any final thoughts, any final words, any shout outs, sponsors, anything like that, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll do a quick outro and that'll be a wrap. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to obviously I'll shout out my sponsors, Amino Pure, and then my posing coach is Grass Fed Fitness, Josiah. He's been obviously I think the biggest game changer for us this prep. Like I've never had like a posing coach before. It's always been like Dom or like Dave critiquing my stuff, but I think critiquing my posing this year was just the biggest astronomical differences to like showing off my physique and like how to trigger certain muscles. I always thought I knew how to pose, and then I started working with him like 5 minutes in, I'm sweating my balls off. So I was like, oh, okay, this is how it's supposed to be. But that's been a big game changer. And obviously, shout out Dom. He's been a huge help in the past 2 years. Like couldn't be more grateful to have him as my coach. So I'm gonna ride him out, and hopefully, we turn pro in the next couple of years.
Awesome, man. All right, Joey, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens at North Americans. I would love to kind of get you on. I try to get a lot of the guys on pre-competition and then post.
Mhm.
So if you wouldn't mind coming back on maybe, week, 2 weeks after, just to kind of chop it up about North Americans, your experience, win,
Yeah.
lose, whatever. I would love that. Would you be down for that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, hit me up after North Americans, and we can get on another podcast. It'd be great.
Cool. We'll talk about cheat meals and all that fun stuff, right?
I don't know what that is.
No?
I had
Are
this
you
past
being
off
serious or are you joking?
this past off season when I got up to 285, I had 2 off meals.
What were they?
Um, one was this Mexican place by our house, Trini's, which is like bomb. One was, and then we went to Sedona Tap House, which is like a place around here, and I got like a hangover burger with an egg.
You're not going to have anything post show. Just a little cookie or something.
I haven't even thought about it.
Okay.
It's not even in my mind.
I know. I love it, man. You're locked in. It's going to be a great show. Huh?
Have to be.
Yeah,
You know,
no,
I'm not-
I know it's awesome, dude. I love it. So we'll get you back on after the competition. We'll see if you did have a cheat meal or whatever. Have some fun and catch up after North Americans. Okay, man. I really appreciate it, Joey. I'm going to do a quick outro and we'll close it out. All right.
Perfect. Thanks for having me, man. It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome. All of you who are tuning in to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you very much. Two quick things here as we wrap up and close out this conversation with Joey today. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube and then take this episode with Joey, share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Joey, tag Behind the Muscle so that we know you specifically listened to this episode and found great value in it, in which I know you did. And then one other thing, why don't you guys just, if you're on Instagram or get on Instagram right now, give Joey a follow on Instagram and just encourage him as he closes out this prep for North Americans. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.